private office or a political office. These can be defined as the offices that support different types of political principles in the city, namely the office of the executive mayor, the office of the speaker of council, the office of the whip of council, the office of the deputy whips, the chairperson of chairperson's office, the leader of the opposition's office, and offices of the MMCs, as well as political party caucus support offices. So these are political offices. Now, these are offices that are tied to an electoral outcome or mandate. And so, too, are the political staff that support them. These include, but are not limited to, the chief of staff, special and strategic advisors, personal assistants, spokespersons, and the like, who are recruited for employment on a fixed term contract which is linked to the term of office of the elected politician. Equally, in the event that the political principal is prematurely ousted or steps down, their staff too follows. And this was the case when the former executive mayor Herman Mashaba was succeeded by the late executive mayor Jeff Makuba. All the staff in political offices followed when the then mayor Herman Mashaba left the administration. This is an accepted and duly legislated practice applied across the world, because a political strategy and program that is driven by personnel who do not share the same values as the government of the day will have far-reaching implications for good governance and service delivery objectives as mandated by the electoral outcome. In an acknowledgement of the fixed-term contracts in a political office, and to create a uniform reference point across and within the different spheres of government, National Treasury, which we are answerable to, issued a regulation that outlines the intent and purpose behind the employment of political staff, stating that they must be placed on a fixed-term contract with a 30-day exit clause in the instance of a change in the political administration. The regulation comes into effect in the middle of this year. But on the 19th of October, 2021, SALGA actually, in anticipation of this regulation, issued a circular saying that the regulations must be implemented as of the 1st of November in anticipation of the next election. And it was on that day, the 19th of October, that the Government of Local Unity under the ANC leadership then tabled a report in council, another unlawful report, which constituted the second conversion, and I'll speak to the first conversion just now. This report was unsigned, which is highly irregular, so there's no accountability as to who actually put the report together. It was brought to the mayoral committee by the then chief of staff in the office of the executive mayor. And I want to share with you the contents of this report, this unlawful report. This is on the same day that SALGA says, as of the 1st of November, we need to observe this National Treasury regulation because the new administration is coming after the elections. They then bring a report to the mayoral committee which reads, it is recommended that the fixed term contracts of employment in respect of directors and deputy directors in the private office of the executive mayor, which are coming to an end on the 31st of October 2021, be extended for a period of 6 months from the 1st of November 2021 to the 30th of April 2022. It is further recommended that the city manager or his delegate be authorized to give effect to the city's directive dated 7 September 2017 and contractual obligations in consultation with the employee in terms of the directive and or contract. The last recommendation, it's recommended that the migration of the service delivery excellence and rapid response function from the private office of the executive mayor to the office of the chief operations officer is confirmed, and the acting city manager or his delegate is authorized to complete the migration of the service delivery excellence and rapid response function from the private office of the executive mayor to the private office of the chief operations officer, including the consequent conversion of employment status of senior management of that unit and military veterans unit to permanency and fixed term contract respectively. So this was the conversion report, unsigned, brought to mayoral committee and approved by mayoral committee on the 19th of October. But the first one was done on the 28th of February 2021 in contravention of the city's employment policy. And this one said, it is recommended that the conversion and placement arrangement framework be approved, that those employees currently in political office on assistant director and lower levels be converted from fixed term contract to permanent in line with the placement principles and methods stipulated in the CPA framework. And then it goes on and on. All of this irregular as per the city's HR policies. Now, it's also to be noted that there's almost 1,500 other fixed-term contract employees in the city of Johannesburg in the administration, and we should ask ourselves the question: why are these ones being treated differently? Why are they being given preferential treatment by this conversion of their fixed-term contract employment into permanent employment? Why not the other 1,500? So there is no fairness in this whole practice, and these are people coming through political office. So these are people who are politically connected, clearly, who are being given this advantage of permanent employment at a high cost to the Joburg ratepayer. As a result of the mechanizations of the previous mayoral committee, the city and its residents are victims of an attempted political hijacking that we are bound by law to correct. To deduce that the multi-party government's correction of an illegal and expensive action is a witch hunt fueled by political motives is untrue and a willful disregard for the Municipal Finances Management Act, the MFMA, that prescribes in Section 78 that each senior manager of a municipality and each official of a municipality in exercising financial management responsibilities must take all reasonable steps within their respective areas of responsibility to ensure that the system of financial management and internal control established for the municipality is carried out diligently, that the financial and other resources of the municipality are utilized effectively, efficiently, economically, and transparently, that any unauthorized, irregular, or fruitless and wasteful expenditure and any losses are prevented. With 130 personnel imposed on political officers and the city's salary bill at a cost of at least 80 million rands per annum, we had to regularize these appointments in line with the original terms of employment. We do suspect that there could be more irregular appointments in the system. The responsible actions of the multi-party government must signal to all 36,000 of the city's employees, regardless of rank or affiliation, that we are prioritizing good governance in order to accelerate service delivery. Indeed, this is a new era or a golden start for the city of Johannesburg, where there is zero tolerance towards using the municipal coffers to build a small army of loyalists at the expense of close to 6 million residents. I thank you very much. I'm not alone. I'm here with the MMC for Group Corporate and Shared Services, who's also responsible for Human Resources, MMC Leah Nutt, and I'm here with the Acting City Manager, Mr. Mesuli Mlandu, who will help me with answering questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, EM. As stated, the EM is flanked by officials and an MMC who dealt intimately with this matter, and they'll be able to answer some of your questions. You know the drill: your name, where you're from, and your question. And just to correct a mistype, the regulation that we're dealing with is a COCTA regulation and not a National Treasury one, just to make that distinction. Yes, ma'am.
All right, it's Mpho Phalatse from ENCA. I just want to find out, Mayor, exactly how many employees are going to be affected by this?
Good morning, everyone. Mama Zimankosi from the Sowetan. I just wanted to find out, between February and October, when the first resolution was taken by MECO, and up until the second report that was brought to, I'm not sure if you said council, in October on the 19th, what did you guys do then as the opposition to challenge what you guys are terming now illegal conversions? And then also, if you can tell us, in terms of the staff that were absorbed by the city, which political parties did those staff fall under? Were there any at the time maybe contract workers that were affiliated with the DA that were affected, and that would be now affected by the rescinding, council rescinding this decision? And then lastly, I just wanted to find out, we've been told that the city deployed JMPD officers to the workers to sign some sort of acknowledgement of receipt of the notice, or I'm going to call it the notice, that the city issued out. Can you speak to the logic of using JMPD officers? What informed that decision? How many had not signed the notice? What is this? Notice of receipt. Can you just clarify that move that the city made?
We'll pause there.
Thank you. I will answer some, and my colleagues will take some of the questions. How many employees affected? Exactly 130 employees are affected for now. As we said, there could be more. So these are the ones that we've been able to uncover. What did we do? I'm going to ask MMC Leonard. MMC Leonard was the leader of the opposition at the time of this first conversion in February, and she can talk to what she did when we found this out. Political parties, this is not a party-based initiative. This is purely based on policy and on the regulations that have now come out. So it's got nothing to do with which political party. If there's going to be DA people who are affected, they must also be in line with the law. So we're not going to pick and choose depending on which office you were in. All staff affected have a right to reapply as the new political offices are being constituted, and they will be considered, but they will not receive any preferential treatment because of this process. I will ask Ms. Suli to speak to the issue of the JMPD deployment, and I'll ask MMC Not to speak to what happened when the first conversion was done.
All right, thank you so much, EM. And for the benefit of the media, the JMPD department is divided between police officials and security officials, and that distinction must be made. When we deal with crime, we send the police. When we deal with correspondence, sometimes that is urgent, we do send the security officials of the JMPD. And in this instance, the security officials of the JMPD were sent, and they did not even wear the security uniform that you see downstairs. You'll see it's normally written security, and the other one is written police. They're not wearing even that. We ask them, be on civilian clothing, because we want to be as clean as we can be in this matter, for a simple reason. Our notice made it clear that it is urgent, because there was a council meeting on Friday. It is urgent that we start to have this conversation of compliance with the employees, so that we start to regularize what at this stage, as it appears to us, was an irregular conduct. So we said it's urgent. Indeed, the notices were issued, and the employees were invited to come for a briefing in terms of those notices. Indeed, about 50 of them did arrive. When they arrived, they refused to cooperate with the process. They teared down our registers, and after that, they said they would not accept them. They want that they must be addressed. Immediately, some shop stewards of SAMU came to deal with the matter, and those shop stewards of SAMU made it clear to them that these notices are confidential. We can only give them if they are mandated by the employees with signatures for them to receive these notices. The employees did not even want to sign to have their signatures on a piece of paper mandating SAMU. We then kept our notices because we could not issue to a union who claims to be representing these employees, and we don't have proof of that these employees are their members in the very first place. So we then issued emails on the same day, on Monday, and again on Tuesday, to issue these notices via email. But for us to pass the standard of service, we must make sure that you have received your notice. And given the urgency of this particular matter, the only space that was available, at least as of yesterday, for us to be able to do that was to use our security officials to go and deliver. So that's what this matter is about. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you. Yes, so we addressed this particular issue as soon as we heard about it at the beginning of 2021. At the time, we were not informed as political parties that there was a conversion process going on. Our staff were informed to attend a meeting or a briefing session with the Mayor's office. And on the 9th of March, we were told that that briefing session was happening on the 10th of March. So we immediately wrote to the then MMC for Group Corporate and Shared Services, who was at the time Councillor Luiso Masuku, and we've asked them to urgently advise us why political staff contracts were terminated when the GLU assumed government, why those staff were not afforded the opportunity to convert their contracts into permanent by the incoming administration, and that we requested the number of staff and political officers whose contracts were terminated when the new administration, Government of Local Unity, assumed the seat of government, the number of political staff as of the 1st of November 2019, and the number of political staff as of the 1st of March 2021. And these were all requested. We didn't receive any response from them. That briefing session then happened. We asked for copies of the presentation. We were denied access to these. At the time, we found out through various staff members that they had bloated the structures. They had actually increased them from what they originally were. We then issued them with a lawyer's letter through our party's lawyers at the time to state that there was a notable failure in terms of Section 66 of the Local Government Municipal Systems Act, which provided that the power to approve a staff establishment vests in the municipal manager and not the mayor. At the time, we also indicated that despite the fact that they were indicating that lower level employees were benefits of this, everybody below assistant director, they had in fact, and I can even give you copies of this, advertised positions for deputy director officials in the private office of the executive mayor in March 2021, which was completely in contradiction to what the actual memorandum that had been approved at MACOM stated. It was also in contradiction to what they told the media, the residents, and the council at the time. And we again did not receive any response to that. And in essence, we also had scenarios where officials in political party offices who refused to sign the conversion because people take on the risk of the particular position in a political office. They know it's tied to the term. It's done across the globe, as the mayor has mentioned, and also across many municipalities. And they refused to sign it, and they were threatened with termination if they did not sign the conversion letters. They were not given a choice in the matter. During this process, where we have rescinded the particular decision that was made by MACOM, we have also received correspondence from previous employees who are very aggrieved that if there was the option, and as the previous government stated, this option was taken in 2014, to have permanent conversions in political offices, then why was there a general purging of the administration in 2019 where all staff were let go of their fixed term, new staff were hired, and those staff were given the opportunity to convert? If you're talking about continuity of secretaries and PAs, you would have allowed that continuity to happen at the time. And those employees have come forward. So despite the allegations made, and I've seen several of them on various news channels, that they took on the previous government's, or the DA governments at the time, staff. That is not the case. And we have letters of termination for those staff members that can prove that. So we have been fighting this for a substantial amount of time. We always engaged with the previous two mayors to state that we believed that their process was irregular and unlawful, and that we did not agree with it. It also meant that political caucus office structures were bound. And when the dispensation changes and the seat allocation changes, it means political office structures cannot change. So you now have new parties coming into government who, despite their legislated right to form a caucus support structure, cannot do so because those staff are already tied up in other political offices as permanent members. I think that which staff were absorbed and was the DA affected, I think the mayor has alluded to that particular fact. And yes, all party structure or political offices are affected. All caucus office structures are affected. This is about fairness. It's not about picking which officials from which political parties, we want to engage with. It was delivered to every single person that was employed or converted during that time, which would include all political offices. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll start at the back.
Thank you. It's Congo Daily from Independent News. My question is related to the SC division of the city. Do the people that are employed, they qualified to do the job that they do? Around the Joburg Metro, you find a lot of unfinished projects, which in my view, they have never been followed the proper processes of procurement. You know, others, the prices are being inflated and then could not be finished.
Sorry, my brother, can I stop you there? Can we engage with that question afterwards and deal with the matter that we're dealing with now? Right, thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Mpho Phalatse again from ENCA. I just need clarity on a few things that were also spoken about in terms of what the actual letter or the notice said to these 130 plus employees. For instance, some of them saying that they've been told that they need to bring back the finances that they benefited from in terms of, whatever benefits that they had during the time that they were under this contract. Apparently, they've been asked to bring those back. And they've been told that they could be charged with an offence if they don't help the city in, bringing more information about these appointments. So just some clarity on those two matters. Have they been asked to, for instance, pay back some of the benefits that they had during the time that they were under these allegedly illegal contracts?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm from SABC News. My question is just adds to the supposed question about the wording on those termination letters, and if there's a termination letter or if they're being requested to resign or to pull out of the agreement.
Can we respond?
Yes.
I would like the acting city manager to respond to this, but I need to clarify that council approved for the irregular decision that was taken by the mayoral committee to be rescinded. And council then approved for an investigation into the matter and handed over to the administration to see the process through. And that is why we've got the acting city manager here, Mr. Mesuli Mlandu, who will take us through exactly what the administration has done and what the notices state and the reasons behind that.
All right. I think it's important that we separate the terms. There's no termination letter on the table. What we have on the table is a notice to notify the employees that there were irregularities in your conversion. And in that notice, we then invite them to make representations as to how we should regularize. We are then also notifying them that the council has approved that the matter be investigated for various reasons, including possible contraventions of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act. And the media must appreciate this, that when we talk about corruption, the definition of corruption is there in section 1 of PRAC. It talks about unlawful gratification. It gives you instances of unlawful gratification. You get a gift, it can be unlawful gratification. You get an employment that you don't deserve, it's still regarded there as unlawful gratification. The list goes on and on. There's an entire definition of what unlawful gratification is. So we are saying employment, unfortunately, happens to be one of them. You cannot sleep today and wake up tomorrow, you're permanent. There has to be a justified reason what caused it to be permanent. And it has to be valid and lawful. It has to be served in law. So we're saying to them, these are the implications of this conversion that the council is attending to through investigations. And that's a distinction that we would want to make. This is not to say you have committed any corruption. And in actual fact, we can't even say that for a simple reason, is that the contracts, the FTC, the fixed-term contracts of these employees are still running up until what you call end of April. So no one has committed a crime. In actual fact, they are still within their FTCs in terms of time frame. The consent shall come, May, because at that time your contract, as we understand it, has come to an end. Then the consensus to whether now you are breaching the law shall arise at that point in time. We don't want to get there. That's why we wrote to them and said, listen, can we have a conversation of compliance? And that's what this conversation is about. And we are reminding them that these employees have got a common law duty to assist the employer to resolve non-compliance. This is not a labor relations matter. This is a compliance matter. That is why, up until today, there is no employee, no union that has taken counsel to court. The question is why. They know what this matter is about. So I want the members of the media to get a copy of our notice, to appreciate the difficulties that we're dealing with, and to, as we're inviting the employees to say, let's have a conversation of compliance. But you will be wrong if you are going to assume that you have derived rights and benefit from an irregular conduct. You'll be wrong. Our law doesn't allow us to do it. In actual fact, if I stole your jacket, it remains yours, even though it's with me, because I must have access to the jacket lawfully. So in this instance, we are saying the conversation is about compliance. How do we help each other to make sure that your employment in the city of Johannesburg is lawful and is compliant with prescripts? Now, this issue of monies that shall be paid and all of that, that is not true. Let me just give you clarity in that respect. If you've got a contract in the city of Johannesburg that was awarded to you in supply chain terms, irregularly, whatever spending that is incurred in that contract, you guys know, it becomes what? Irregular expenditure, because of the conduct of irregularly awarding tenders. Same applies in here. It's a legal term. If I am employed in the city of Johannesburg and I don't have a contract with them earning, my salary must be qualified as irregular expenditure in terms of law and be accounted to in the financial statements. So what is it that our notice is saying? It's saying we don't even have to get there because we still have a contract. Let's prevent a situation where the financial benefits that you're earning in the city of Johannesburg to come to a point where they could even be classified irregular because you still have your own contract. This is a conversation of compliance, nothing more and nothing else. No one is being terminated. You are conversing. I must say this, and I must say this to our employees, that we will not take responsibility of shop stewards who don't understand the compliance language. We did not appoint them. Our duty is to reach out to our employees and say, this is what we understand this issue to be, and you guys shall see that in our notices. The leadership of the union have got a duty to train itself in the language of compliance. And that can only be done by the union itself. And stop creating a confusion that we're terminating. If we were terminating, we would have written our letter as a notice of termination. And that's not the case. We're in a compliance conversation with our employees. Thank you.
Thanks, Em. We're going to take one last round of questions. Yes.
ACM, I want to ask you, because you're raising issues of compliance, rightly so. I wanted to ask, in terms of the city administrators, because I wasn't in Joburg, so I'm not too familiar. In terms of the city's administrators, when this is brought to you, not necessarily, but you represent the administration, but when this was brought to you by the political leaders of the time, were there any compliance flags raised by the city's administrators at the time? Because if compliance is an issue now, compliance was an issue then as well. Sure. And from speaking to the workers, they were saying, fine, the 50 workers, they were saying, fine, the people who addressed us on Monday, who were talking to us about compliance, conversion, how it was illegal, the people who were talking to us now were the same people who were telling us about conversions and how we have to, I suppose, addressed because now you are permanent, we're going to work it out or whatever. So now what I'm saying, what responsibility did the city's administrators at the time take in trying to make sure that the city takes decisions that comply with legislation, as Salgai and whoever else is talking about now? So I just wanted to ask about the role of the city, and also just, can you just get clarification? Last time we checked, Mr. Floyd Brink was the acting city manager, now it's you.
Let me start with the last
So,
question.
any last takers before we close the question session? Yeah.
The last question, and then I'll hand over to Acting City Manager. Yes, Mr. Floyd Brink is still the Acting City Manager. He's on leave. He requested leave until Friday. He will be back thereafter. In the meantime, the Mr. Masuli Mlando is acting.
All right. You will notice that in our speech we indicate that council has authorized an investigation, and this investigation is going to answer this question: how come that this matter was missed by some of the officials? And we don't want to speculate. We don't want to speculate what happened in this space. We'll allow the investigation to speak for itself, because if I say, for example, an official made a mistake, I shall be quoted out there to have said some officials are given a slack. If I say one official was put under duress, again I'll be misquoted. So let's allow the investigation to speak for itself. What happened? And that's what the council is authorized, and that investigation is on. The report shall be before council within 30 days. And those questions shall be answered, I think, fully in that respect. Thanks.
Closing remarks, Ian?
Yes, thank you. This is clearly, ladies and gentlemen, an act of corruption on the part of the previous administration. As the new Joburg multi-party government, we will not leave any stone unturned in uprooting corruption, any irregularities in any part of the city, and this is in the interest of our residents. The amount of money here, when I started in this office, I was approached and I was asked to issue a directive to the CFO to make available an amount of 59 million rands per annum, which now is up to 80 million and counting, so that these individuals can be absorbed in different parts of the city. Now, at the same time, I'm receiving complaints by senior managers in the entities, in the departments, that political staff gets forced onto them, who more often than not are unqualified for the roles that they're supposed to be absorbed into. This waters down the quality of service that we're able to render to our residents. Anybody that applies for a position needs to apply and compete for that position fairly. They need to demonstrate ability to deliver on the mandate of that position and not just be taken from political office into permanent positions as some favor to some politicians. This act will not continue, and I'm grateful that COPTA has also now released its regulations, and that going forward we cannot continue with this sort of thing, but any others that we discover in the process will also be managed in the same manner, handed over to the administration to help with the conversion back to what they were supposed to be, and will ensure that going forward there are no irregular practices in the HR processes of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, EM. Thank you, MMC and Acting City Manager. Colleagues of the media, your time and presence is appreciated. And my brother from the Star, you can engage with the City Manager regarding your SCM question. No, we will do so afterwards. Yeah.
All right.
Sure. Thank you.
So where am I going to be engaged?
He's taking you for breakfast. Eh? Yeah.
The coach is just behind you.
Thanks, Mpho.
Yeah.
Oh, look at my bags.